So here we are, guys. And I think we've gotten a little traction, and so you can give us an update if you would, Jim.
Sure. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all, and especially to Armando and Debbie for being the scribes and getting the notes out. The notes have been awesome, you know, and actually inspirational to what we're doing. And so when the notes came out from last Friday, it was, you know, I wasn't here, and it had those 4 points. That's very actionable items, and we went to the races with that. And so Armando, you know, right on, man. Good job.
I saw you in the Vida paper, Armando. You look good. Same hat.
I was in the Vida newspaper?
You got it, sir. I have it in my bag right there.
Oh, yeah, we'll check it out, brother.
You're so with us.
Yeah.
So basically, what we've done is I took the notes from last Friday, and the 4 points. I think I have them somewhat memorized, but if I mess them up, somebody can add to it. Number one, the coalition is a living amoeba, ever growing. You know, and I'm sorry that you guys didn't get to meet my other sister from the Samoan community. She had to leave early, Nancy Tuao Cantrell, and we both know her from Oxnard College. Her daughter played there. Nikki, right?
Her daughter.
Tuao? Yeah. And
yeah, I work with Nikki.
oh, you know Nikki. Yeah. Oh, that's where she works now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So yeah, Nikki's cool.
Yeah.
So bottom line is now we have a Samoan representative, you know, that is part of the coalition. She also works with my good friend Cal Harrison from South Oxnard, Port Hueneme, right there off the Surfside. They have a little boxing, fitness, wellness thing across from Miranda Park, right next to the Hueneme city vehicle storage lot. So it's again, South Oxnard, Port Hueneme is represented, and the Samoan community through Nancy.
Jim, 1 second, okay?
Okay, sure.
Guys, everybody email, phone number, and name, okay? So that I can really send it to everybody, okay? Go ahead, brother.
Yes.
Everybody, please.
So based on your meeting last week, the 4 points that came up that you wanted to pursue was, number one, to increase linguistic and cultural competency within the system and throughout the community. You also mentioned about building capacity of racial and ethnic community organizations and groups. And then thirdly, you mentioned the fact of the work of the cultural ambassadors that Benny has done the work and foundation on, and setting up, you know, the whole cultural ambassadors program for each of our groups and populations. And again, the populations that we've identified are, you know, the typical, you know, African American, Latino, transitional age youth, LGBTQ. We have Samoan and Native American, and what we want to do is kind of focus on the cultural ambassadors program in addition to building the coalition. So the coalition is sort of like the glue that keeps us all together, you know, and it runs through, you know, the cafe and you know, our work here, and we need to look at that. So what we're attempting to do, I sent those notes to Elaine Crandall, the new director of Ventura County Behavioral Health, and so what we envision is to, first of all, we want to sustain the coalition as one voice, one collaborative. We don't want to see, you know, out of this effort, you know, certainly each group may see things a little differently in how they want to pursue their wellness or pursue their pathways to healing and to pursue their activities, much like we do at the state level, but yet there are things that we are universally committed to. You know, social justice, unconditional love, overall wellness for all of us, you know, dealing with all the social issues that we face with, racism, you know, those things kind of cross all of our lives daily. But, you know, the young people may want to do things differently than the African American group or the Latino group. And there are things we might want to do collectively together under the banner of whether it's the Keys Leadership Academy or, you know, the boxing group over here or whatever. So it's a very fluid sort of a flow amongst us. And we need to have a coalition so that when we go to the county or go to an entity, that they really recognize the Oxnard Multicultural Mental Health Coalition. So we've asked for $10,000 to build the capacity of the coalition. We're meeting here, you know, some infrastructure needs, and much like we did at the state, we got funds to support the coalition, okay, the Multicultural Coalition. So we've asked for $10,000 to do that. You know, somebody has to take the notes. You know, you got to have a meeting place. We like to have to break some bread sometime, you know, when we meet together, because every time I know people of color come together, we break bread, you know, and so that's what we do. You know, there's things like that to build a coalition. We want to have some guiding principles. You know, at some point, as we grow the coalition, much like we did at the state, you know, we're going to have some guiding principles. What do we believe in as a coalition? What do we stand for? You know, somebody's going to have to write that up. A lot of it, we have that stuff, but somebody has to still put their time in to do that. You know, how do we make decisions? You know, what we don't want to do is have, you know, 50 black folks come in here or 50 Native Americans come in here and think that they're going to run the show. You know, we want to be consensus. So we need to take our years of experience in community work and come up with a consistent decision-making, you know, process. And how do we handle conflict? Because some of us may see things differently. And we want to have an open, transparent structure to where we can be really a thriving, long-standing organization. So we need to spend some time building the coalition. So we've asked the county to give us some funds to that. Then what we've asked for is $10,000 for each cultural ambassador group to do the initial needs assessment and planning that you folks agreed upon based on the cultural ambassadors program. And we know we need to do some initial needs assessment stuff. Come on in.
Thank you. Yeah, join us.
Hey, Renee. Yes.
So, Jim, tell us what the 5 groups are.
Right now, the 5 groups are African American, Latino, Native American, LGBTQ, Asian Pacific Islander.
Yes.
Did I miss any?
No.
Okay. Those are the 5 groups.
So we expect everybody to be, you know, jumping in and throwing in their consensus opinion, you know, their consensus building opinion. We want an active voice, and it's important. Go ahead.
Okay. And then we have the Oxnard Multicultural Mental Health Coalition as well, you know. So we need to spend time kind of looking at these, you know, population groups uniquely. But then the coalition as a whole, you know, can also look at, well, what holds us, what are some things that are universal to each, as you do your studies? What are things common to all of us that we're dealing with? And then how can we come up with a blueprint for each group, as well as a blueprint for the coalition, to transform the system? At a policy level, at a systems level, at a program level, at a service level, at a funding level, all of these things we have to look at. Besides our own sort of pathways to healing, we're dealing with systemic, institutional, we're dealing with stuff at all levels. So as a coalition, we got to address these big issue, macro issues, and we also have to deal with these other sort of, you know, issues that we face with just in our own, being a black man, being a Latino, being an LGBTQ person, being whatever. So that comes to about $70,000 in sort of seed funding for our efforts. So yesterday, just to give you a quick summary, and this really spearheaded, I think, and culminated in the work that we've all been doing, but it culminated because of the LULAC report that was released. It was an investigative report on Ventura County behavioral health, and it found all kinds of disparities and financial corruption and misuse of certain funding and over-medicating of Latino clients and consumers and participants. Because medication, we know it from our other population groups, medications affect various racial and ethnic groups very differently. And a lot of the testing and background on medication that they've done has been in academia, predominantly on, and I'm not trying to throw anybody in the bus, but it's just the truth. And sorry for having my back to you, brother. But a lot of this has been predominantly in white academia on white patients.
White males.
They haven't tested us.
Specifically white males.
Okay, yes. And so, we've been addressing this in Sacramento and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, you basically are herding us in. When you go to mental health clinic, herd us in, writing us scripts, getting us all messed up. And so LULAC unveiled some of that stuff. And Dave Rodriguez from LULAC gave in my opinion, you know, I'm just using my sort of civil rights history here. Andrew Young, which was a African-American civil rights guy out of Georgia. He was a soft-spoken, but he threw a hard right hook and a left jab. And we all have our styles. David Rodriguez spoke yesterday just like that. He laid it out in Sacramento and just basically said, you know, we stand by our report because the county initially said this report is bogus, doesn't have any merit, you know, da-da-da-da-da. Typically, whenever we present something, how they knock us down and so on, he represented us very well. Outstanding. Okay. Elaine Crandall, the new director as well, you know, she spoke, and it wasn't like the typical mental health director. She talked about listening to the community. She talked about representing, you know, having the community be represented. She wants more of us to be involved on committees at behavioral health. So guess what? We want some of you folks to attend these meetings where money decisions are made. To be on these committees where they're talking about what programs should be, you know, supported and sponsored by behavioral health. Well, guess what? You have the Keys leadership, you have the cultural ambassadors, speak up for these programs. We're going to have to do that, you know? And she spoke about that. But let me tell you what several of my colleagues said. One of my colleagues said that we've never heard a behavioral health director talk like her. We hope that they don't get rid of her. And we have to be very careful because Elaine is sort of like in no person's land on an island. She's a revolutionary leader. Believe me, the system is going to try and smash her down. Because she's for us. She actually turned to Dave Rodriguez and said, I hope I'm doing a good job, but I won't know unless Dave Rodriguez and LULAC tells me. Now, you got to imagine, at the state level, to have a director say something like that, it's like, no, they don't do that. So all in all, we have a great opportunity now. I think Elaine will listen to us, so I'm asking the coalition at this point, you know, what do you think about the initial plan to ask for the start of funding, to get something going, and make us, you know, have some resources to carry this work on. You have some actionable items that you've listed very carefully. So the next step would be to go forward to behavioral health and move it forward. So I'm done, and I'll turn it back to you folks to see what you want to do.
I just wanted to comment. I was lucky enough to be on the webinar and be able to listen to the comments yesterday. I don't know if anybody else was also, but Jim did a fabulous job of clarifying the issues. And it's sad because there's only a 3-minute period, right? It's very brief, and yet you were just right on target for each one, giving specific details and reasons why he was objecting to the RFP as it was written, because it didn't include basically the culture competency components, but he put remediation tools and the specific things that we've been talking about. So first of all, I wanted to hats off to you for that.
You guys did the work.
Yes, and then the second one is I'm totally supportive of our taking this proposal to that. I will help write it if it hasn't already been written. And then I think we should invite Elaine to come here, and I will contact her if you want. She's
Hold up, Debbie. That's a good idea. Hold up. Okay. Let's talk this through. Okay. We're going to do a couple of things because Debbie and Jim are talking up here. What we're going to do is we're going to start at ground floor. To a large degree, we're all fucking crazy. Okay? We're all crazy. The services that we get are lacking. We used to say that all the time, and we'd go get drunk and high.
Yes.
Beat the shit out of everybody. Or ourselves. Because we didn't know how to access, and they tried real hard to keep us away from that front door. So it was always a cat and mouse game with a lot of times, look at that sister, how big she's getting. A lot of times, us not really understanding at any level how to play this game, with a few exceptions, and most of these people were in the institution and to a large degree Much of the work that they did was silent, quiet, courageous, but a lot of times it just didn't bleed out. And when it did bleed out, we didn't understand it because we had no historical context. You guys get me? We're crazy, we don't have medication. We just have dope and tequila. That's not good. We all know that, right? That shit kills, right? So, and food. Yeah, right, and yeah. And so, and Benny will discuss it a lot more eloquently than I, and that then turns into rage, and that turns into frustration, alienation, lack of worth, all of that stuff, and it makes us sicker. So this is an insidious thing that's going on,
Yes.
and all the while the institutional people get not millions, but billions of dollars. And every now and then they throw treatment at us, and we don't even know what the fuck that is. And we get sicker, because we're not getting better. You know, it's very insidious, very weird. So what people have done, and it's reached critical mass now, there's enough body of evidence to indicate that what they have done institutionally is almost a crime. It is a crime. People can't go to jail, but what they can do is shut the fuck up, loosen their purse strings, and let us, if nothing else, fall on our face through our own leadership, our own programming, and our own guidance. That's really where we're at. So this is very, very historically important to us. Black people taking leadership on their mental health issues. Mexicans, Latinos taking leadership on their mental health issues.
Yeah.
Gay people taking leadership on their mental health issues. And really then, once they develop this, and you know, I'm going along with it, guys, you know, the idea of the data stuff, because I think that's going to move quickly, but we got to get the programming. Because we have some programming that we have to fund, and we have to identify, and we have to make stronger and bigger, and we have to make it mobile and get it out there. And one of those modalities, that's why, you know, we've got some artists that are real strong here, is that art universally heals, and it crosses all special populations.
Art and music.
Art and the whole spectrum
Yeah.
of art and culture does that. But that shit is snuffed out of us like that as well. So this is where we're at, and so what Jim and Benny and Debbie, and thank God we got these people aboard, but we've also got, you know, people like Elaine now, and we've got David, and we've got Jaime and Roberto and some other people. We need some players to be able to move this thing at a real high level, and now Jim is saying we can be bold enough, and Debbie is agreeing, and I see that Benny nodded his head in approval, that we can now, after 25 years, go to county and say, give us $70,000.
Initially. But we're coming back. You see, I have another report on some other funding that's going to fund the programs, too. Not only...
Get close, guys.
So later on, before we do that, don't let me forget to do that.
Yes. Okay, so what we're going to do is do the Debbie thing, because we got a lot of people here. And what we want to do is we want to entice you guys to stay with us, okay? Because don't trip like you're not sick, okay? We're all sick.
Yes.
The deal is, can we get better together? And
Right
can
on.
we develop our own programming together? And can we do it for our kids together, right? So Lupe, we're going to start with you. Introduce yourself, brother, and then we're going to go around to Melly and Melissa and everybody, okay?
I just have a request. Juna has to leave in about 20 minutes, so if we could put...
Well, let's
her
start with
first.
Juna then, okay? So let's start with you, sister. And we'll work out. Hold up, Anna, go ahead.
My name's Juna Muller. I live over in Ojai Valley, and this is my first time here at Capione, and I want to thank you for having me. Thank you for including me in this meeting. It's really wonderful to meet you. And I came here to meet with Debbie and Armando because I'm working on a project called Mending Patriotism, which is kind of a project that explores how we...
Can we take that out and share it?
Yeah,
Since
sure,
you're-
how we are part
yeah.
of this country, and...
Debbie and I can do that.
how we
You keep talking.
how we can come up with new ways of defining patriotism and defining how we connect as being proud of being part of this country, how we be connected as a country and internationally as well. And my project specifically focuses on creating quilts out of clothing that are collected from the U.S.-Mexico border. These are all from the Mexican side of the border in Sonora, Mexico, on the border of Arizona, just 2 hours south of Tucson, and they're made as a community participation project. And so this one was made, and there's a twin that's exactly like this, that's in Mexico on the border. This one was made with about 15 women and about 20 other people that were involved to collect the clothing from the desert and then to come up with the idea of what we wanted to make. We made this symbol of celebration for them. And it's a way also to share the stories of border crossings here in the United States, because most of us in our lives don't get the opportunity to actually see the border with our physical eyes. And so it's the physical evidence of these crossings so that we can have an emotional connection to these stories.
And many of us, brothers and sisters, specifically Africans, don't have the ability to go back 400 or 500 years and be, chained and beaten and so on and so forth. But there's a connection. There's an incredible connection, and it feeds into our anger and our despair and our dehumanizing, fight that we have with one another each and every day. Art, more than anything, transcends all of those things and brings us together. So there's a commonality there. The arts, right? Music, drum, dance, the written narrative, all of that stuff. And what this sister is doing is not only therapeutic, it's historical, it's just amazing. And we can do projects like that here. Right, sister?
Absolutely. So we're going to do a project where we're going to use some of these clothes from the migrants from the border on April 16th, and all of you are invited to get to actually work with the clothing. And we're talking about trying to do some projects that work with clothing from this community and maybe making some commemorative quilts, and how can we create quilts that are physical evidence of the stories and tell our stories as a community.
For example, the young kids that are killing each other. Instead of, we talked about that a little bit. This is what happened. In Mexico, we saw that in Mexico, the peasant and the middle class, that's just about 99.9% of all of Mexico, knows who the enemy is. It's the institutions, the people that have government, it's the police. Here, so they react against that system, or they're quiet, or they die. In this country, when a kid gets killed in a Mexican community, generally the parents grieve, and then they become very conservative and very pro-police. They feed the enemy because they don't have any other outlet. What we want to do is create something else. And so that creates another paradigm. And so what we're doing here, guys, is super cutting-edge stuff. Stuff that we're beginning to think about as a possibility. And it's only a possibility because we understand now that we have the power to do it.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
I was in a conversation yesterday with a Muslim colleague.
Move back just a little bit, brother, so we're not turning our backs. If you could, and get close, Jasmine, because we're going to introduce each other, and we're going to throw in...
This is just a 1-minute deal.
Go ahead, brother.
She's an Afghani from Afghanistan, and she's told me a quick story of a woman that was beaten by I don't know what they call it, a priest, or what is the Muslim? Imam, yes. Over in the homeland, and it's a whole bunch of manipulation. It was about money in the temple and all that kind of stuff, but they used her as a scapegoat. But the common thread of all of that, so I had a Muslim, Afghan, Native American, LGBTQ, Perry, 2 feathers, Native American, 2-spirit, because in the Native American community they don't say LGBTQ, they say 2-spirit. And African Americans and a Latina, works with Dolores Huerta. And we always talk about racial and trauma, racism and trauma. So that quilt, as I saw it, I had my slavery thing. Armando hit it right on point. So even that art, and my hip-hop brothers might come in here and sing about that. Their quilt might be a hip-hop song. But those pathways are very critical. That's the kind of work we're trying to do with this project. When we have that quilt, we can see. I can relate to that. I can talk as a black male being discriminated against, the stuff I go through every day, and each one of us, that quilt has touched. So that's a beautiful thing. I just wanted to share that to say, you know, we can have a conversation like this and invite cops and everybody else in here so they can hear about racism and trauma, okay, that they've caused in our community that Armando was talking about. And we teach the system how to work with us, okay? Beautiful thing. Just wanted to share that.
So we're gonna do the sign-in. Everybody, please do the sign-in so I can send those notes to you guys, okay? Because I'm doing the notes right now, and I promise they'll get to you ASAP.
And please
Okay.
write your email really
Real
carefully.
clear, yeah. You through there, sister? Compañera?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Maria.
My name is Mario Quintana, lifelong resident of the city of Oxnard. I'm the president of the Good Club, which is the Greater Oxnard Organization of Democrats, which meets here at this building. Also, I'm the chairman of the Community Relations Commission in the city of Oxnard. So,
And working with young people that are at risk.
and I work down the street with the Boys and Girls Club,
Yeah.
at-risk youth, with a workforce investment program, helping kids with employment and educational goals.
Which Boys Club, the 7th Street? Oh, they opened that back up?
That's been open for a
Oh,
while.
okay.
It's a teen
Okay,
center.
cool. All right.
Okay, compañera.
My name is Elibeth Valencia, Eli for short. I'm an OC student. I've been involved in many organizations, including clubs, Mecha, Fashion Club, the student government, and just here to be liable for whatever's needed and contribute writing or editing or anything.
Thank
Ooh.
you. Yes.
And a, did you say fashion and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, we're gonna tie that really.
Yeah.
Artists, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Josh Reed, Oxnard resident, I'm a college student. I am ASG president, which was fun, I guess. And I'm just here because I like Cafe and I like the vibe of the culture. And I never thought I would see this in my lifetime, and here. And it brings me in here. It's a magnet for me, so it's really bad, Melissa, that they brought it up to my attention and I made time and respect to come and walk into these doors. And it brought peace to me.
Right on.
Thank you, Brenda.
See,
Beautiful.
we've been through culture changes.
Yeah, right on.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm Armando.
Julie. I'm Julie. I've been here for 15 years. I know Devin Armando 15 years. And I'm a Zumba instructor. And so
Come and dance.
I'm here and I'm here to learn and also to be part of everybody here and, you know, learn more from us.
One of the things that we talked about with Jim and
That's right.
your name again, young lady?
You're reading my brain now. You're reading my brain.
I'm sorry.
Juna.
Juna. Is that along with all of this, the way we heal ourselves is we put a little money in our pocket, you know? And so by doing that, we can begin to develop these things that Jim and Benny have identified and we've talked about, is these clusters, entrepreneurial clusters of doing our own business.